Hey, what's going on, guys? Chris here with Calimoto TV. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back inside the house because we're going to do another install. Today, it's all about the Brembo Corsa Corta 19mm master cylinder. I'm very excited about this. I really have been wanting to upgrade the master cylinders in my bikes, and this is honestly the first time I've had the opportunity to do that. So we're going to play around and see how this goes. It looks like a pretty straightforward install. The only tricky thing that I'm going to have to play with is this switch and see if the brake switch, whether I want to splice it or if I can take the old one out and put it into the new one by removing the new ones that's already there. So we'll see how that goes, but yeah, it should be pretty straightforward. We're going to remove the front fascia because I just, might not have to, but I just kind of want the room, make it easier on myself. So let's get removing stuff. That's right, we got the chest mount back on, and just like when we removed the windscreen the last time to actually swap out to the WRS windscreen, you have to remove a few bolts. The first couple are 3 mils, and there's going to be a 4 mil we have to remove. So we'll start on this side, do the same thing we did last time. I'm not saying you have to do this. This is just what I want to do. I want to have more space to work. If you ever filled up a reservoir with the screen here, it can be messy, so I just, we're inside. Try not to have my wife kill me for making a mess. So we got a 3 mil. Take off right down here. Now the 4 mil you'll need is up in here because for whatever reason they go from 3 to 4 for that little tab that the top of the windscreen actually sits on. And there's a longer 4 mil that we have to remove. Didn't think we had to, but I forgot we do. It's this guy right there. This one's extra long and has a tab it's got to go through. When you do it, just be careful. Alright, so next thing we're going to do is take off the cap and get all of the fluid out of the reservoir, so that way we can drain this and not make a giant mess everywhere. Shop towels just kind of siphon out. I had a little vacuum thing that I thought was going to work, but it doesn't have a catch can, so all it would do is pull a vacuum, but then I'd have to keep doing like a straw effect, and I didn't feel like doing that. Now clearly, if you're taking all this out and you use the brakes, it's going to put air. Imagine we're going to have to bleed them anyway, so when you do this, just go in knowing you're more than likely going to have to bleed the brakes. A little bit harder to see. I'll try to do my best. Show it here, but you have this banjo bolt. It's up there. That is a 12 mil. So what we're going to do is we're going to take obviously the bolt out. There's probably going to be fluid, hence the bag. That way I can just kind of dump the fluid in the bag, and you can sit in there and just kind of keep from leaking every freaking where. You know what I mean? As you can see it starting to leak already. Note to self, maybe do this with a ratchet next time. Washers that go with it, the crush washers I got to replace on there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these gloves off now, and there's a little rubber piece here, a little rubber grommet holding things together, so I'll take that off so I don't get too much of this brake juice on it. Alright, there we go. Do you have to do that? No, it's just one of those things that keeps everything together and it keeps it from just dripping everywhere, because obviously it's going to keep dripping. Next, let's take this off. I believe it is a 5 mil. So crack these loose with a 5 mil. And it is done. We have removed the master cylinder. Now, what I want to think about is whether or not I can take this switch off and put it on the new master cylinder. That is what I'm trying to figure out. Let me walk you through a bit of what I've been trying to figure out here, because this hasn't been very straightforward. This isn't a one-for-one swap or anything like that. I tried to swap the plug from the stock master cylinder to the new one. It does not fit. Even if I could get it to go on there and adhere it to the master cylinder, the actual plunger that lets you know that your brakes are actually being contacted to turn the brake light on, it doesn't reach. So even with all that, couldn't keep that. So what I'm going to end up doing is routing it through kind of here, and I'll show you once I get it all to that point. So that was one issue. The other issue, and when I take this off I'll show you again, there's a little indexing pin that is on the stock one that the stock master cylinder has a cutout for, so it just slides in and goes. Well, that metal piece sticks out, and obviously when you go to clamp on it, it doesn't fit. So I've been trying to play around with what I could do. I snugged it down on there, talked to Manny at Moto Million. He mentioned drilling it out, so I might try to drill it out. It's just from here to here isn't a good shot, so I'll see if I can even get it done. If not, I think the way it's sat in there and the way it's pinched on, it's not going to damage the master cylinder housing. That's what I was worried about. If I tighten it down too much, it'd crack. Using the Insta360 for this, but this was the little tab that was a locking pin for the stock bar. So I drilled that out and then used some files to smooth that out. Really easy. If you do this, you're gonna make a mess, so I highly recommend doing something like this. Also, make sure you cover up all of the lines that fluid is gonna try to go through. So keep it clean. The next thing is this reservoir and the adapter piece that you have to add on there to get this to work. Well, when you do it, it actually hits this bracket here. So had to do a little manual manipulation, kind of bending it around and trying to get it to work so it doesn't hit. Easy fix, bend it, no big deal. The next thing is the clutch, or the lever pull here. As you notice, it's kind of short, like it doesn't quite go the full handle. That's not what the issue to me was. If you slide this over and tilt it down, you actually hit this housing right here of the throttle control. So you have to manipulate this in such a way that it doesn't hit here. We have just a little bit of clearance and it won't hit anymore. Now the last thing I'm going to have to try to figure out is whether or not this banjo bolt and everything is going to line up nicely with the particular position that I have. And then I'm going to route the actual cable. Kind of peel this back here a little bit. There is a section right here that has two ties on it, and the brake cable is right here. So what I think I'm going to do is route this basically with the stock one, bring it all the way back to here. I'm going to cut the factory wiring right here, and that's where I'll do the splice. That's kind of what you can expect if you're going to run one of these stock without replacing your clip-ons or anything else. The master cylinder is universal, so therefore it doesn't kind of account for stuff like this. Now, I know this might be hard to see, so I do apologize. I'll do my best to show it, but we're going to try to line this banjo bolt up to make sure we have the motion we want, and we're doing what we wanted to do. So learning on learning. You saw me try to install that one banjo bolt here, and as I was screwing it in, I noticed it would stop screw in. It wouldn't go any further, and there's a lot left, and there's still an entire port open. So I'm like, okay, why is that doing that? And when you read the instructions, it says make sure the fluid bolt is the correct for the master cylinder. My assumption was that Brembo is going to send another bolt like that is going to match with their master cylinder, because there's two slots. So I was under the impression that as you change, you have different flows for the pistons, but that's not the case. That's not how that works. And basically, when you reuse the stock bolt, just remember to replace the washers, because again, they're one-time crush washers, so don't reuse them. So yeah, lesson learned. Well, banjo bolts in. We got everything lined up. What I want to do now is make sure that This clears the, and then we also want to make sure that we don't have any crazy pulling issues with the hose going to the brake line. And it honestly looks good lock to lock. We're not bending. The thing we did do is somehow lock in the new wirings. Oops, I knocked that off. That's not ideal. Don't know how I did that, but we'll have to fix that. That's not ideal. But this is the plug, goes in the bottom. And yeah. All right, now we kind of come down to the fun part, at least the thing I find fun, the wiring. We're gonna cut the factory side here. Now there's actually a connector down in here, so we're not actually losing all that much from the original wiring. So it's kind of what you want to do, keep as much factory intact as you can. I'd prefer not to have to do that ever, but it's not the way this kit works. And then we'll cut down the other side. I have 2 environmental splices, and I'm also going to put heat shrink over them so it just kind of blends in. And I chose this spot here because you have a secured point, and it's also not a spot that flexes too much. I mean, it'll move, but it won't flex as if it's like closer to the handlebars here. So this spot I think will work best, and yeah, let's start it. Yeah. We'll cut it a little long just to start. That way we can kind of play with it back and forth as far as how much we want to leave on and cut off. All right, handy dandy Gerber, little snip snip tool. Back this a little bit. What we're going to end up doing is running the heat shrink over this black sleeving that comes stock, so that way everything just kind of blends in real nice. Now a lot of people will strip some stuff off and they'll take way too much material off. You don't need to take huge pieces off. Just enough to slide in the barrel and crimp it down. All right, something we're going to do as well is I don't think polarity matters with these. But I do want to make sure that we have something more correct. When you release the brake, the lights go on, and when you pull the brake, the lights go out, that type thing. Definitely don't want that. Covering stuff's kind of a must because you don't want to heat shrink the wrong things. There we go. Hot. Hot. Make sure it's sealed. There you go. I mean, looks pretty daggone good if you were to ask me. And again, I'll strap it down. We got a little free play that way, so we'll give it a little bit more slack. And yeah, there's the wiring done. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there we have it. We have the RCS 19 Corsa Corta Brembo master cylinder installed. Brakes are blood. I didn't show the bleeding of the brakes because I feel like there's tons of that out there. If you're unsure, you pump this a lot, break this loose, let some air flow, go down there, do the same thing to each caliper, and make sure that you never get too low here so that we suck air back in. But this thing already feels way stronger than the previous or the stock version, and I'm very excited about that. Everything is clear and moves. The lights turn on so when you hit the brakes, and like I mentioned, we have this spot right here that was fixed. So all in all, I tell you what, this was not an easy install. There are a lot of things to consider when you're doing this, the position, whether or not you're going to hit. Obviously when there's pressure, you're not going to come all the way back, so something to keep in mind. I didn't think about it, but we want to make sure we had it set up right. Also, you know, your brake line here, you want to make sure you're at the right angle and you have the proper amount of slack so it doesn't get caught anywhere. So a lot of things. We're gonna button up the front here and then we'll be done with the video. Well, that was the full install of the Brembo RCS Corsa Corta 19mm master cylinder on my 2025 Panigale V4. You know, I haven't seen any posts like this or videos like this where you kind of go through all the trials and tribulations on a stock set of clip-ons, I always see the upgraded ones. So those of you that want to upgrade this master cylinder, you sort of see what I had to go through in order to get this thing to actually work. Is definitely a lot of steps, but one of the fun things about building like this is you get to learn and you get to get your hands dirty and try and be frustrated and do stupid things every once in a while. It's something I've definitely missed for a while now because I haven't worked on a bike like this in a very long time. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Definitely subscribe because we do have more parts coming. Some are already here, just waiting for other ones to arrive so we can do, you know, like the forks and shocks together. But yeah, subscribe, you see those installs, and really can't wait to get this out, especially on track to see how this brake feels, because I tell you what, there's a great bite to it, and I'm very excited. But with that, you all have a fantastic day. We'll see you on the next video.